how does what is happening in the Middle East relate to the Old Testament? Is it found in Scripture, or is what we're experiencing just purely political?
Well, the answer is for 100% in Scripture. So what we all need to realize is that one of the things Jesus said is one of the signs of his coming is wars and rumors of wars. And then it said nation will rise against nation. And it goes on to go kingdom against kingdom. Nation against nation is a Greek word, ethnos against ethnos. So one of the signs of the coming of Jesus Christ is ethnic battles between different ethnic groups. And that's exactly what we're seeing in the Middle East right now, is where you see two different people groups who are colliding together, battling together, out of a desire for survival in a lot of ways. And then interestingly, the Bible pointed that Israel would be a key factor in that in the last days. So one of the things it says in Zechariah chapter 12, Zechariah had a heart for Israel. He had a heart for specifically the city of Jerusalem. And Zechariah said this in Zechariah 12:1, the burden of the word of the Lord concerning Israel. Thus declares the Lord, who stretches out the heavens and lays the foundation of the earth and forms the spirit of the man within him. Behold, I'm going to make Jerusalem a cup that causes reeling to all the peoples around. And when the siege is against Jerusalem, it will be also against Judah. And it will come about in that day that I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who lift it will be severely injured, and all the nations of the earth will be gathered against it. I don't think you can miss the fact that the city of Jerusalem is key to world peace or world conflict. Think about this. The country of Israel is only the size of the state of New Jersey. Yet everything we do ends up coming back to that. The world's focus comes back to that. And why is that? Because to God, Jerusalem is his special city. Israel is his land. And so he had told us ahead of time, Jesus told us ahead of time, that conflict would arise there. And we have been watching that get ready to happen. We're going to watch it happen in a way that's even greater than what you guys and what we all see right now. So I want to tell you that as the last days continues to count down to the coming of the Lord, Jerusalem will be a city of great conflict. Israel, the land, will be a land of great conflict. And we're going to see that occur until the Antichrist comes. So will there be a period of peace in Israel when the Antichrist comes? The answer is yes, but I want you to be careful, because when he arises out of the European nation and European community, comes and brokers a peace treaty, that's the sign that we're at the very, very end of time. And there'll be a season of peace that'll end. Prior to that season of peace the Antichrist brings, the Bible said we would have conflict in the Middle East. And so that was prophesied, and also we'll get into more of the prophecy in a moment. But so what you think about is this, is that God had promised Abraham the land of Israel to be his. Then God told Abraham, your children will go into Egypt for 400 years. Then I will call them out of slavery, out of Egypt, and they will come and I will give them the promised land. So we know that Abraham went, he walked the land. God showed him which land would be his, the land of Israel. And then what happened is that, the children of Israel, because of a famine, ended up in Egypt. Joseph rose up in power. And then after Joseph died, they were enslaved. And for 400 years, they were in slavery. Then Moses was called, and they were brought out by a great exodus. They spent 40 years wandering the wilderness. Then they went, and through a lot of different wars and battles, they ended up taking the promised land as theirs. But God also warned them of this: if you're ever unfaithful to me, you'll be cast out of the land. And so when they weren't faithful to the Lord, the Babylonians came. They seized the land of Israel. They seized the city of Jerusalem. They deported everybody out of the land. And then God promised them something. You'll come back again. And so what happened is 70 years later, just exactly like God said, they came back into the land of Israel because of Cyrus, who was the head of the Persian Empire. By the way, hundreds of years before Cyrus was born, Isaiah was told his name. Cyrus would be the one raised up. And hundreds of years later, Cyrus, a man named Cyrus, raised up and allowed them to come back. Then the Lord warned them, if you're not faithful to me, you'll be cast out again. Jesus actually warned them, if you don't recognize the day of his coming, the day the Messiah is among you, then you will also suffer and be cast out. And so what happened in 70 AD, about 40 years after Jesus died, a little less than that, the Roman general Titus came and laid siege to the city of Jerusalem. And he ended up through a lot of killing, a lot of carnage, taking the city of Jerusalem. The Roman soldiers did exactly what Jesus said they would do. They actually tore all the stones of the temple apart, so not one stone was left upon another. And they deported the people of Israel out of the land. But in Isaiah and Jesus both prophesied that in the last days that the people of the children of Israel would take the land back again. So what happened is right before World War II and during World War II, the Zionist movement erupted. And all of a sudden it was like this magnetic heart cry for the Jewish people to come back to their land. They hadn't been there for thousands of years. Thousands of years while they were not there, the Palestinians claimed that land as their home. For generation after generation after generation, it was the only home they knew. Then all of a sudden, all these Jewish people come sweeping in. And kind of the short version of this story is some of the European nations tried to block them from coming. But they still came, and they still came, until finally there was such an incredible number of people there, the world didn't know how to handle it. So on May the 14th, 1948, the United Nations proclaimed that Israel would be a nation again. They became a nation again, and they owned all of Israel except Jerusalem. Now, interestingly, Jesus said the sign of his coming, his second coming, is that the city of Jerusalem would be in non-Jewish hands until Jesus called it the time of the Gentiles ends. Now, this is in Luke chapter 21. And so what happened is in June of 1967, 5 Arab nations decided to attack Israel and wipe them off the face of the earth. And so what they did is they outnumbered them, they outmanned them, they had way more weapons than they did. It looked like for sure Israel would lose, and they won the war in 6 days. But in 6 days, they took the city of Jerusalem as theirs. They took Temple Mount as theirs. And then they, at that point, the head rabbi in Israel in June of 1967 went on Temple Mount. He blew the shofar, and he said, the Messiah will come in our generation. Now, they didn't realize that the Messiah had already come. We know the second coming was going to happen. This was the great sign that begins the end of all time. It's the great sign that Jesus Christ is coming back. But the problem happened then in this. The Palestinian people there outnumber the Israeli people. And Israel did something, and I don't want you to miss this. You might say, Chuck, are you anti-Israel? No, I'm not anti-Israel. I'm pro-Israel, but I'm also pro-Palestinian. I'm both. And that's not wishy-washy. As Christians, we love everybody. Yeah. As Christians, we care about everybody. And so what happened is they began to treat the Palestinian people like almost they weren't human. It was ethnic group against ethnic group, just like Jesus said would happen. And so they began to do horrible things. And over the course of time, they ended up building huge walls. And if you ever get to go to Israel, I can promise you this. Those walls will break your heart. They're nothing, you saw them. Yeah. They're nothing more than in making prison, areas of Israel into prisons that people can't leave. And when you're on one side of it, on the Israeli side of it, it's beautiful and it's prosperous. And when you cross in on the Palestinian side, there's poverty, there's pain, there's not good water supply, there's not good medical care, there's often a lack of food. And so these people are trapped there. By the way, an incredible number of them are our Christian brothers and sisters. Yeah. We actually have a partnership with the church in Ramallah, the capital of the Palestinian state, that we have been supporting. If you go with us to Israel, I know Steve will tell you this. Yeah. Whenever we go to Israel to walk the holy sites, we start ministering in that church. And whenever we're done ministering in that church, I ask everybody, what was your favorite time in Israel? Everybody says when we were with the Palestinian Christians.
Yeah.
You know why? They're your brothers and sisters. And Israel is not treating them the way the law of God says they're to be treated. I want you to listen to this passage of scripture, because right now what's happening is happening in large part because the Israeli nation that I do love is in sin. They're in sin because of how they treat the Palestinian people. Listen to what God clearly declared was the way they were supposed to be treated. In Leviticus chapter 19, verse 33, it says to anybody, all the Israeli people, when a stranger resides in your land, you shall not do him wrong. The stranger who resides with you, shall be to you as a native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Did you hear what God said? God said to all the Israeli people, do you know how you should treat the Palestinians? As you want to be treated. You should love them. You should care for them. You should give them all the rights that you have. They should get the same water supply, the same food supply, same medical care, same education. They should get the same security treatment from the police, not treated severely. And God, by the way, this isn't the only passage. There's probably, I think, 11 other times God tells Israel, you should treat those who are not Israelites like they are Israelites. You should treat them with love and care. And when they're not doing that, what happens is you have a group of people who are suffering. And then out of that group of people, a minority group, and I don't want you to miss that, a minority group turned terrorist. When you go to Palestine, all you guys, you and I will walk the streets of Palestine together and you will not be in fear. You know why? The people are awesome.
Yeah.
The people are loving. They're caring. Even the Islamic people that are there are loving and caring. They're not this evil horde. And when they're treated that badly, then a small group, a minority group, becomes so filled with hatred, they're willing to risk their lives to do something to harm those who are hating them. And that's what caused the atrocities we see today. Mm-hmm. You know, here's the saddest part of the truth to me, Steve. It's the saddest part. If we could win the people of Israel to the Lord and they actually lived the way Jesus wanted them to live, they would love the Palestinians. We'd have no problem at all. Mm. You know what we're missing right now? We're missing Jesus Christ. Yep. We're missing his word. We're missing people being loved that way. So that's what's going on. Yep. That's kind of a quick overview of how the problem happened.